That night, I thought my son and his friends were going to enjoy nothing more dramatic than a couple of pizzas and a video game marathon. Instead, a woman in a pink bathrobe stormed across the street, screamed in my son's face that he had stolen food, and declared her kid deserved it more. From that moment on, my life turned into a nightmare. Police on my doorstep, HOA complaints, even Child Protective Services at my door because of one entitled neighbor who decided my family was her target. We had only been living in Oakwood Hills for 6 months. My son Jay was 17. Smart, steady, the kind of kid any parent would be proud of. That Friday night, he had 2 friends over, Mike and Dion, boys I'd known since middle school, practically brothers to him. They were upstairs, laughing bass, thumping from a video game, and I was downstairs enjoying the quiet hum of a normal evening. When Jay asked to order pizza using his own money from his job at the library, I said yes, without a second thought. 40 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Jay grabbed the food, and he and his friends lingered on the porch for just 10 seconds before it happened. The door across the street flew open. Out charged Carol Peterson, a middle-aged woman in a bright pink robe, stomping across her lawn with fury plastered all over her face. She marched right up into Jay's space and shrieked, "Why don't you take that stolen food back to whatever hole you people crawled out of? That pizza belongs to my son." My son froze. His friends froze. I froze for a second too. My heart stopped at the words, "you people." Jay, clutching those pizza boxes like a shield, tried to process what was happening while Carol ranted about her son seeing the pizza car and deserving a treat. I stepped out, placed a hand on Jay's shoulder, and told her firmly that the food was his, he'd paid for it. Carol waved off my words like gnats sneering that we were selfish, that good neighbors share. And then, with a final jab of her finger, she threatened, "You'll be hearing from my lawyer and the HOA. You'll regret this." She stomped back to her house robe, swishing like some cartoon villain's cape. The night was ruined. The boys picked at their pizza shoulders, slumped, laughter gone. Jay stared at the boxes like they'd been poisoned. I felt my blood boiling. Later, in a moment of misguided optimism, I crossed the street to try reasoning with Carol. She cracked her door son, peeking out behind her, and told me with a smirk that because her Kevin had had a hard week, he deserved the pizza more. My son, she said, could handle disappointment. She slammed the door in my face. That's when I realized I wasn't dealing with misunderstanding. I was dealing with pure entitlement wrapped in prejudice. Days later, a thick envelope from the HOA landed in my mailbox, a formal complaint. According to Carol, my family violated bylaws, excessive noise, unauthorized business activity because of the pizza delivery, and most infuriating, intimidating behavior toward her. She had twisted everything, painting herself as the victim. My hands shook as I read. This wasn't just a crazy rant anymore, it was a calculated move. I drafted a response, detailed every second of the incident, quoted her slurs, attached receipts. I had J. Mike and Dion write statements. Martha, the sweet older neighbor next door, offered to back me up. She warned me Carol had a history of driving neighbors out. She doesn't let things go. Document everything. That night, I ordered a full security camera system. If Carol wanted war, I was building my fortress. The cameras went up. I thought maybe she'd back off. I was wrong. One evening, blue and red lights splashed across my living room. Police officers walked up my driveway. My heart stopped. They said they'd received a report suspected drug activity groups of young men loitering, exchanging packages. My son was doing homework at the table. I knew instantly who called. Carol. I showed the officers my cameras. 3 solid hours of footage, nothing but an empty driveway and me dragging out the trash. They nodded, apologized, even admitted they get calls from that house a lot. But I stood there shaking after they left, realizing Carol had just risked my son's life with a lie. For a black teenager, a false drug accusation could end in tragedy. That night, I barely slept. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, it did. A knock on my door one afternoon. 2 strangers with clipboards. Child Protective Services. An anonymous tip claimed my house was unsafe, that there was neglect, suspicious activity. My world tilted. I felt like I was drowning as they inspected my fridge, questioned my parenting, asked to speak to Jay alone. Watching him walk into that room with them, confused hurt nearly broke me. Carol had weaponized CPS against us. When the investigators finally left, I collapsed at the kitchen table, shaking. For a moment, I wanted to give up. I wondered if I'd been foolish to move here, if I'd been selfish dragging Jay into this neighborhood, if maybe we should just pack up and leave. That thought tasted like defeat, but it lingered. I felt like I was failing as a mother. Then Jay came downstairs, pale but steady, and I saw the fear in his eyes. I realized giving up would teach him that bullies win. No, I couldn't let Carol define us. That night I pulled myself together. I organized every scrap of evidence, every statement, every video file. If she wanted war, I'd fight with the truth. And then came the break. One rainy night at nearly 2 a.m, my cameras caught her. Hood up, clutching a trash bag, she crept across the street, dumped garbage all over my lawn, and spray-painted trash across my mailbox. Watching that footage, I felt a rush of vindication so strong it made me dizzy. Finally, undeniable proof. I backed it up 3 times. Called the police, filed a criminal complaint, and marched straight to court for a restraining order. The judge watched the video in silence. When it ended, he looked at me and said, "I'm so sorry you've endured this." He granted the order immediately. Carol could not contact us, mention us, or come within 100 yards of me or Jay. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. But she wasn't done. The HOA still held a hearing on her initial complaint. I walked into that basement room, board members around a folding table, Martha and George behind me as witnesses. Carol sat prim and proper, tears ready on cue. She delivered her sob story, 2 decades in the neighborhood, feeling unsafe, just trying to be a good mother. Then it was my turn. I handed out packets of evidence, laid out the timeline, quoted her racist insults, described the false police report, the Facebook lies, the CPS nightmare, the vandalism, and the restraining order. I didn't need theatrics. Facts were enough. Silence followed. Board members flipped through the papers, eyes widening. Martha and George stood up and vouched for us. Then Bob, the HOA president, looked at Carol. "Is this true?" he asked. She said nothing. The board voted unanimously to dismiss her complaint and opened a formal review of her behavior instead. The balance of power had shifted. 2 days before the restraining order hearing, Carol tried one last stunt. My phone buzzed with a camera alert. A tow truck was backing up my driveway, hooking up my car. I bolted outside in my pajamas, yelling, "That's my car!" The driver grunted that a woman named Carol Peterson had called, reported it as abandoned. I pulled out my phone, told him she had a restraining order, that he was part of a crime. He unhooked and sped away, shaken. I had it all on video. In court, my lawyer presented every piece of evidence, ending with the tow truck incident and even the driver's sworn affidavit. The judge's face darkened with anger. He extended the restraining order for 5 years, fined Carol thousands, ordered her into counseling, and warned that jail awaited if she ever crossed the line again. Carol sat, pale lips trembling as her world collapsed around her. Weeks later, a for sale sign appeared on her lawn. I saw movers hauling boxes. Saw her son Kevin glance at me with shame in his eyes, mutter a soft "sorry," and disappear into the truck. Carol herself never showed her face. Just like that, she was gone. And me, I stood in my driveway breathing in the silence, finally free of the pink-robed terror who thought she could bully us into submission. The lesson: document. Everything, stand your ground and never let someone else's hatred define who you are.